Buenas tardes, Facultad de Ingeniería. Nosotros somos Netflix. We are Netflix here. We are very happy to be here with you. We are visiting from Netflix this week. We're going to be visiting some universities like you. We want to know you and hear from you, and so you can also know some of us that same as you, we are engineers, we are working in these interesting areas, and we want to share our experiences of what it's like to be at Netflix, so you can also learn with us. And well, I'm gonna let everybody introduce themselves, and then later we're gonna do some questions and answers, Q&A, so feel free to ask us everything. If you feel comfortable making questions in English, do it. Si quieren hablar en español también, como ustedes prefieran. So, ¿cómo no te voy a querer? Vamos a tener una buena conversación y esperamos que la pasemos bien y aprendamos todos sobre ustedes y ustedes sobre nosotros en el. So, I'm gonna let's start from there. You can introduce yourself.
Hello. Hi. My name is Nihit, and I work in the membership and finance data engineering team. I lead a small team of roughly 10 data engineers. And in case you're curious about what data engineering is about, we'll get deeper into that later part of the conversation as well. But in general, that's what my team focuses on. Two simple questions. How many members does Netflix have? How much money we are making? Kind of important questions, but that's what our focus is all about. So that's what that's what I work on in Netflix.
How long have you been at Netflix?
I've been there for 2 years and worked previously in Microsoft and Amazon before that.
Hola, mi nombre es Sandra Pizar. Así como dije, también soy parte del equipo de Data Science and Engineering, pero yo estoy enfocada en el área de People Analytics. He estado en Netflix por 4 años y mi rol es ser Analytical Engineer.
Hola, soy Adrián López Lanús y soy vicepresidente de Consumer Insights. Entonces, Netflix es bien conocido por todos los datos que tenemos, pero también nos inspiramos por hablar directamente con nuestros consumidores, de hacer estudios directamente con ellos para mejorar el servicio. Entonces, trabajamos mucho con todos los data science engineers también. Gracias.
Hi, my name is Samir Shah. I lead an engineering team at Netflix, which is responsible for building out solutions so that all the content that Netflix is making makes it to the Netflix members side of it, so that all of you can enjoy it.
Hola, yo soy David García, soy Senior Software Engineer en Netflix. Mi equipo se encarga de hacer que Netflix funcione en todos los dispositivos como televisiones, gaming consoles, se llama Device Engineering. También pasé por estas aulas de la hermana Facultad de Ciencias y bueno, voy a ser su moderador también esta tarde. También llevo 2 años en Netflix y he trabajado también en Google y en Yahoo.
Hi, my name is Iván Tiveros. I'm Mexican. I graduated from the Tec de Monterrey. I've been in Netflix for 6 years. My team, I work with Samir, my team takes care of all the content that goes into the Netflix product, and we make sure that all the creatives have the tools that they need to make sure that their content and the quality of the content makes it to the site and all the apps.
I'm Jared. Everybody, what's up? Have you guys, has anybody signed up for Netflix, like gone through and signed up, put your hands up? We got some work to do. So my job is, I lead a team, a growth engineering team that's focused on helping you guys sign up on Netflix. So we do all these kind of mind tricks to help you understand what you're going to buy. I lead a team that's focused on the APAC or Asia and Pacific, the Asia Pacific region, so India, Asia, and the Southeast Asia.
Hola, yo soy Princesa Howard Green. I'm on the recruiting team. Llevo 2 años con Netflix y si tienen preguntas de cómo aplicar, cómo venir a Netflix, me buscan a mí o si no a Michael allá.
Introduce myself. My name is Michael. I'm on the recruiting team as well, Princesa.
Thank you, everybody. So I think we're gonna open to questions. We have some topics that we were asking you before coming, and well, there are some themes that were, more common than others. And as you know, we have people here from different disciplines in computer science and what Netflix does in the engineering side. So we have people doing big data, people doing software engineering, people doing hardware, cloud computing. And as we know from the conversation we had with the professors before, there's also a lot of diversity in the areas that you study here at this faculty. So I think it's a good opportunity for us to learn from everyone. So I don't know, we have questions about artificial intelligence and machine learning. I think one very recurrent question is about the algorithms and recommendations that we do at Netflix, and we have people here that can talk to about it. So you want to do a quick intro on that, or any of you?
So Nikita and I were part of the data science and engineering. We're organized into multiple different groups that actually we align with different business areas. But across all those, we have 4 main areas of focus in the data science and engineering world. One is experimentation. As you might have learned, we love to experiment. Everything that goes into the product is never fully released till we have fully tested it. And you may have even heard about A/B testing. This is with the final goal of always provide the best experience, not only in the UI, but also on the best quality of streaming, high definition, and the minimal interruptions. So everything is always tested. Second, research. Research is very broad. And here is when we're talking about machine learning, right? As it may be, it's well known that Netflix, for example, will provide recommendations, or the homepage is highly personalized. All this is an application of machine learning, but it's not where we only stop there. We also apply machine learning for optimization of the production of the new Netflix originals. Everything that is happening behind the scenes, from scheduling, logistics, where we're gonna be filming, it's all decisions that have been made based on machine learning. Analytics, right? That includes very big deep dives into very large structures of data. In order so we can support decision making, provide insights, define metrics so we can measure success. And then we also have analytical tools like dashboards. So all these applications of machine learning, analytics, and all that can be used at scale to narrate a story. And this is our expert.
So you can think of it as there's a fundamental foundational layer of raw data, right? And data is super interesting, especially from as you're kind of learning about the basics of software engineering, etc. It's kind of interesting because it's different from classical software engineering, and yet it's connected, right? In the sense that in a typical software product, it's kind of deterministic. You tell a program to do something and it does it. But with data, it almost is a river. It flows, it changes, it evolves every day in slightly different ways and forms. So from a data engineering perspective, what we try to do is form a foundational data layer in the company. So you can think of it as a data warehouse, as it's referred to, but that's where we store all the data that is coming in from Netflix. And that could be all the clicks and pause and plays that you're doing across all your Netflix watching activity, right? All that is getting stored, but also activity about how many people are signing up. The fact that Jared was mentioning about how are people signing up, right? How much time did it take? How many clicks did it take? And then also helping collect data on the experiments that we are doing that was referred to, right? So we might be trying to do an experiment to see, does it make a new payment method, if we were to introduce a new payment method in a new market, for example, is that good or not? The data for that has to be collected and put in the data warehouse as well. So from a data engineering perspective, we think of it as a slightly as a foundational layer of data infrastructure, which refers to essentially all the Hadoop clusters, all the thousands of machines which are actually going to be storing this data. The S3 layer, for example, which is used to store all our Parquet file format kind of data, raw data in. And then there are, on top of that, we build a lot of different aggregation layers. So you might have raw fact data about each click and pause, but then you want to aggregate it and put it in a different way, in sense of like, for this entire region, how many people watched a particular title, right? Or how many people that were watching it yesterday, signed up yesterday, watched a particular title. So you can slice and dice in thousands of different ways, and that's what the focus of data engineering tends to be.
Right, thank you. So I have one kind of follow-up question. So Adrian, you do a lot of consumer insights. So you get how our clients use Netflix to understand what we can give them better, what we can do better for them. So a follow-up question is, how does this technology help you make these kind of decisions?
One of the things that I appreciate about Netflix is we really focus on the end customer. We're not focused on networks, or we don't have advertisers, so we can focus so much on our consumers. We have a lot of data. We're very, very thankful that we don't know about our customers in terms of who they are and their demographics, but we know what they watch, how many minutes they watch before they change, how many titles you scroll through before you choose one. So we have a lot of data. But at the same time, we consider ourselves, at the end of the day, decisions and the ideas don't come from the data. The ideas come from people. So we have a lot of data, but we're data informed, not data driven. The data is not going to make the decisions. So the data tells us a lot about what the members are doing on the service, but it doesn't tell us what's missing from the service. It tells us about our members, but not about the people that we're still trying to attract. So we do a lot of research directly with customers. We look at the data, we come up with hypotheses and questions. So we see the data, we see what people are doing, and then we go and try to fill in the gaps. So we go out to people's homes, and we sometimes watch them watching TV in their home, and it helps fill in the gaps and inspire new ideas. So we really focus on the consumers, where we use them, then we get the ideas, and then we do the A/B testing that Sandra talked about, so that we make sure that anything we change really is going to be an improvement for everybody. But because we really focus so much on the consumer, we really want to be able to understand beyond just the data, and also understand how to design the service for tomorrow, not just for today.
Great, thank you. So also, I think it's, as well, of course, Netflix is one of the most important things is all about content, right? We want to show you stories from all over the world, and we want you to have a good time. So we have also people here from content engineering, which you might imagine is a whole different area. We are we manage a lot of really big files and millions of streaming per second and so on. So we have people working here on supporting these engineering activities. So do you want to tell them a little bit about it?
Generally, when people think about content, right, it's on the member experience side, right? When you log on to Netflix.com and you see there's rows and rows of content, which is then personalized, like Netflix is not one TV channel, but it's millions of TV channels, right? One channel for every member that we have. But in order to get the content up in front of those members and personalizing it to the right things, which is what data science teams work on the content side, on the content data engineering, on platform engineering, our job is to make sure that we build out tools which are then used at the enterprise level by studios and vendors and agencies which are placed all around the world, right? There is a lot that goes into creating the content itself and then getting it ready to distribute it out on the Netflix service. So it could be all the way from the initial title setup, like how many seasons does it have, what are the number of episodes, what is the language of the content. Then it gets into a lot of editorial content, like what is the storyline going to be like? Is it a western? Is it a fantasy movie? What kind of characters are in there? How much nudity is there? How much violence is in there, right? All of those things are important because we use that to then determine what kind of maturity rating it should get, right? Because Netflix is a global company, and the same content is going to be shown in all of those countries, but what is appropriate in Mexico might be very different from what's appropriate, let's say, in Middle East or in Africa. Right? So how do you make that same content provide that meaning so that the members, when they're logging on, parents, for example, can decide what is appropriate, comes in handy. There is also, we work very closely with data science because they inform the creatives in terms of what decisions they should make. But a lot of times when we get, Netflix being the largest studio, we are making a lot of Netflix original content. We probably get hundreds of ideas pitched to us every single week. Only a small fraction of it actually makes it where we say, okay, we're going to produce this content. But even there, how do you decide, is this content worthy to make or not, right? So we again provide that editorial information on top of the scripts that we have received to say what content category this is going to fit into, what kind of cast we should have, how much should be our willingness to pay for this particular piece of content, right? That's all the interfaces for the executives, creatives, and agencies that our team builds up, right? And this is just a tip of the iceberg, right? You have to think about the videos that are coming in, the audio files, the subtitles, all of that need to get acquired, need to be encoded, need to be deployed so that it's going to play when you want it to play without a lot of buffering to happen, right? And you're talking about petabytes of data which is getting transferred into our ecosystem that needs to be then managed for its entire life cycle. That's
Yeah, so one other dimension that makes it complicated is that when 5-6 years ago, when we only have several shows, it was simpler than now that we have so many, and also we are around the world, so we have 246 territories, and we handle 30 languages. So at a scale, it just makes the problem more complicated.
Yeah, definitely. Those of you who are familiar with managing video files or anything, you can imagine the size of the data that we have to handle. And so there's really a lot of interesting problems to solve supporting this operation at all levels. Another interesting part is about the UI, the experience, the product itself. We need to make sure that it's easy to use, that it's easy to understand, and there is an enjoyable experience that doesn't sit in front of you as an obstacle for you to enjoy our content. Our purpose is for you to enjoy the content. So can you tell us a little bit about the process of the UI experience?
So we use all of the insights that Consumer Insights brings us in talking to the users and also experimenting across the code base. One of the most enjoyable experiences is that you see Netflix right when you open up the app. You see a big billboard there, right, and it starts playing a video. Well, that went through several iterations of trying to discover what was the right thing for you. Not only is it personalized for you, it also has the ability to show you video when it moves. But when we first iterated you at Netflix 5 years ago, you just saw the rows and all of the rows across, and you're like, I don't know what to watch. And so we saw a lot of your insights. We saw a lot of people scroll 3-4 rows down and then put Netflix. And then when we asked them, what happened you put Netflix? They're like, oh, I went to the Googles and I went to YouTube and watched what's the top 10 on Netflix. And then I went back to Netflix. So how can we bring? That's still, you guys are still doing that. So from that we learned that we need to start showing you guys and familiarizing you with the content and give you something to show you to stop that has stopping power. And video has the best stopping power. First we experimented with having just a picture there, a nice big canvas, and then we put video on it. You know what happened? As soon as we played video, everybody was like, oh, I'll watch that, right? And so you start scrolling around and then you start seeing video on some of our canvases, and we created new canvases. Especially shows that we knew, or we have a good indication that we believe that is the right show for you at the right time. So Saturday.
Great, thank you. And well, as you can see, also part of our daily job as engineers there is to push the technology itself to its limits, because we're all the time doing new things. For example, how many of you watch Netflix in your TV at home? Wow. Right, that's great. So I am part of this team called Device Engineering. We work with the device ecosystem engineering, and we basically realized from this information that there's a lot of people that watch Netflix at home, sitting in their living rooms, trying to enjoy. And it's not only somebody looking at Netflix in the computer or on the web. We want to enjoy it, in a proper screen with high resolution and really great sound. So we started working with partners. We created a lot of partnerships with device manufacturers, and we work across the stack. We work very closely with them at all levels, from the hardware itself. We sometimes help these manufacturers spec the devices. So we tell them, we want to show our content in 4K, and you need to support this in your new devices. So we help them design the devices. We work in testing the hardware, all the way to getting the data back from the devices that are live, to make sure that we are not having issues with the streaming, that we are just utilizing the devices with the best qualities possible. If your TV supports 4K, we are for sure going to give you 4K. If you are maybe in a slow connection, we are going to adjust our algorithm. So we are going to always try to be giving you the best experience on that. And that's what device engineering is about. So, I don't know. So, I think we want to open it to questions from you. We want to hear from you, a little bit about what we do and what are your interests. We'll try to make it conversation.
Yeah, I have like a question to ask. Do you use AWS like heavily, or which way? Do you stream over AWS? Do you use EC2, or how does that work?
So AWS is where we have our applications, internal application, and for the member experience, AWS is what we use for all the metadata. All the content you see for synopsis, title of the movie, all that is in AWS. For artwork and videos, we store it in our own CDNs, right? It's called OpenConnect.
Yeah, we are actually one of the biggest users of AWS, and same thing, we always have partnerships with them and try to push them to give us the best possible. I think there's also a lot of work on AWS around encoding and transcoding the video.
Yeah, so Netflix about 6 years ago, I would say, moved completely out of data center. We have no data center. We don't run our own hardware anymore, except for the Open Connector CDNs that is running. We are 100% into the cloud. We use AWS exclusively, EC2 specifically, but then for storage and long-term storage, we do make use of S3 and other technologies that are provided by them.
Another question. Hi. My question is about content engineering. You talk about how much violence and nudity there's in a video, but I want to know, how can you measure that?
So there are multiple ways of measuring that. One is like we have film buffs, right? People who have graduated from film school, who are like freelance vendors. All the content that is coming into Netflix, before it actually makes it to our members, we build up the tooling so that it's routed to those people, and they provide editorial viewpoint on that. So they're watching the entire video and then specifying, on a scale of 1 to 5, how much violence was there, a little bit violence, a lot of violence, and there are like hundreds of different tags and dimensions on which they provide that information. We essentially get a breakdown of sorts of what this content is about, and then we write rules on top of it to determine, in what category we should fit. The other thing is, sometimes we experiment with computer vision technologies as well to kind of view the content itself and kind of flag what kind of things we are seeing.
Any questions? There were 600 topics. Any further questions?
Yes, I have multiple questions. It's more related to the data science. Do you have different models for AV region, or for example, how do you deal with data that is regionalized? For example, when you have data in Latin America, North America, or Asia, how that works? Do you have multiple models? Machine learning models.
It depends on the topic, or like like the type of algorithm, right? So in some cases, like there might be a variable that determines the location, and that actually is part of the how we might weight all other variables depending on how much influence the independent variable, right? So, but likely like just the geolocation might be a variable of the same algorithm. But it depends on the actual algorithm itself.
Yeah, if I understood, like I think your question might be like, you go onto Netflix, you search for something, right? If you search for something in Mexico versus something in India, is the same ranker, the same ML module being used, or is it kind of localized, right? And that's a very interesting question. It's a very interesting space. Jared and I were just chatting about it, how we're actually starting to experiment with that. Today we don't. Today we, generally speaking, at a high level, we have universal models, right? And that's a constant battle in every company. In Bing, for example, that is a similar problem that we had faced, right? Every search engine faces that, right? Every ML space faces that. Do you go completely localized? Do you go completely universal, just one model to rule them all? Or do you do a hybrid, a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and try to make the best of it? So there's no right answer. It really needs to be experimented. And generally speaking, we are in the universal mode right now, but we want to move towards more localized modes because we think there's some opportunity there.
On the member side, we do experiment with that though. As a hint, for viewing, incremental viewing, we do experiment with what is the right model to show you based on what the region you are in.
Another question, sorry. Do you still use the same model defining Netflix price award? For example, it's a model, I'm talking about the model that use matrix factorization in Ensemble learning, Boltzmann, the Boltzmann regression. My question is do you still use the same model defined by the Netflix price award, or that model have evolved to, for example, a deep learning or
the Netflix what price award?
Yeah,
award.
Award
From 10 years back.
10 years back.
Yeah. So I think I'm pretty sure the answer is no. We probably have evolved that from the time 10 years back. And I think like folks might not know what you're referring to here, so I'll just give a recap. 10 years back, there was some kind of a competition or something long before I was at Netflix, or many of us were at Netflix. And as part of that, it was an open source competition to try to beat the Netflix personalization recommendation engine decision, right? We said like, this is what we can do, can you do better? So it was, we released some data along that process as well, which kind of burnt our fingers on that. We learned the hard way that you cannot really release data easily, and we learned some good lessons from that, which we still apply to today, right? So we hear about this experiment that we did, but we learned some things about like how it's sometimes when you release data, especially, which you think is anonymized, it might not really be anonymized, right? And so it's a very interesting learning in the sense of depersonalization. So if you give some data which doesn't have any customer ID or any personally identifiable stuff, right? You can still depersonalize it if you can join it with other sources. That's what some of the researchers did. They joined it with IMDb and other sources, and were able to essentially say like, oh, this person who watched this, who actually rated on IMDb this, and they shared their name on IMDb, so now we know who it is, right? So there were really some good lessons that we learned along the way, and those we apply to today actively, right? When we think about depersonalization, about privacy, etc. Right? So there's a lot of good learnings, but the model is definitely evolved. I'm pretty safe saying that. But I don't know what exactly is the technique being applied today.
More questions?
I actually have a question before we get back in the audience. Can you all share a little bit more about why you studied computer science or engineering, and how you got to Netflix? And then Princessa, if you can share why you were a tech recruiting manager, that would be good as well.
So I got into recruiting through sales. It is all about negotiation and helping drive these guys to get you the best hires, right? And so what I love about recruiting, and specifically from Netflix, and I was at Uber with Michael as well, is I love how these leaders and individuals really help us hire the best talent. And what that means is that they are so in the weeds of the process process. They work very closely with me to figure out who they need from a skill set perspective, but also to how are they going to continue to be strong leaders, and how are we going to make these individuals feel included when they come to Netflix. And it's also tied in very much to the Netflix culture. Our culture is about freedom and responsibility, using your best judgment to hire the best talent globally. And as we are a global company, we also want to reflect that through our employees at Netflix as we continue to grow. So for me, the phenomenal challenge that I have is I lead a team of recruiters and researchers who help me find the best talent, so like all of you out here, and how do we get you to Netflix? And then how do I work with a Jared or Adrian or a Nahit and us actually figure out what that process is going to look like, specifically for their teams, specifically on the skill sets that they need, and how do we find them and continue to get them through the process. And once they're at Netflix, not only love our culture, but also love their leaders and feel included every step.
Then Jared, real quick, sorry, I want to rephrase my question to make sure I'm being inclusive. So some of you might have not studied computer science engineering, I just realized that, so I'll correct myself. So why don't you just share what you studied in college, if you went to college, what school you went to, and then why did you study what you studied?
My name is Jared York.
Jared,
I went to University of Washington.
Okay.
Thank you. Excuse me. Yeah, about I don't know if it's a rumor of the new offices at Mexico. I would like to know what skills are you looking for the students, and which advice would you give to students, not only for engineering, but all sciences, especially social sciences. Thank you.
So our office in Mexico City is continuing to be built. It's going to be built officially in 2020, so soon to come. We have a WeWork space right now, and currently what we have is a lot of our teams that partner with our global team. So if you think about like business development, continue to grow out our partnerships here in Mexico City. We have a team that's starting to grow here. We also have partner marketing that works very closely with our partners, so we can continue to figure out how do we continue to give that best experience across all of the different devices that we have at Netflix and continue to scale that out. So right now, I would say our team is slightly under 20 and still growing in Mexico City, so more to come there. But in terms of what makes you an eligible candidate and person that you that we should consider is obviously looking at our career site, seeing what roles we have there, trying to figure out what skill sets we're looking for, but then also to above all, read our culture memo. Our culture memo is very unique. We have something that's called feedback, which many people here don't always know or figure out what that really means. And feedback is something where we constantly appreciate how we continue to grow in pushing ourselves by getting candid, transparent feedback that helps me as an individual in my professional career grow. And so I think that if you start with reading our culture memo, it sounds exciting to you, it resonates, then the next step is either come find me or come talk to Michael, and we can talk about those opportunities. But the great thing is our office in Mexico City is growing. That's why not only do we want to continue to come and visit schools like UNAM, but we also want to be able to continue to hire phenomenal talent for our business teams here that are continuing to scale out our presence in Mexico City. So if you have more questions, there are more to come. But in partner marketing, business development, those are the two biggest teams that we currently have in Mexico City.
And all of our engineering is in the Bay Area, California.
Yes, all of our engineering is in California. That's your great question.
I actually want to add something. It's a great question that, and Adrian mentioned that we are focused on the people, right? We're not only a technology company, and Netflix is in a very particular position that we work also with the content, with the stories, that we want to move people and make them, feel happy and emotional about what the stories we are telling. And it's working there is also very particular and a privilege for us, because it's a unique place in which we get as engineers and as technical people to work with other disciplines as well. For example, there's a big team of linguists whose job is to try to understand how we can do better translations, how we can write better our content, how we can make it more understandable, how we translate our content to like 40 something languages across the world, how we make this content more inclusive, more diverse. So we are not trying to be, this classical American company trying to impose some culture. We are growing around the world, and we are trying to be a global company.
Just to add to that, so we have just a special relationship with Mexico. Mexico was one of the first countries that we launched outside of the U.S. back in 2011. And since then, it's just been a wonderful relationship. Our very first local original title, so Netflix original that we produced outside the U.S. was actually Mexico. Can anyone guess what that might have been? Club de Cuervos was our first original that we made outside of the U.S. And that was such a success. Since then, we've had other successes. So many of you may have seen Roma with director Alfonso Cuarón that got us some Academy Awards. So a big part of the office here in Mexico as well is related to developing the content. And we've got more than 50 projects going on this year in Mexico alone. So, we're very excited to be creating a lot of content, and we have such a wonderful consumer base here. I think part of the reason why we're here as well is that we don't want, the Mexican perspective only on the screen, but we want it infused throughout the whole company. And so it's important for us to have Mexican talent here, but also back in the headquarters as well. So we want to make sure that the relationship we have in Mexico gets infused throughout the whole company.
Okay, now we'll do that over with three questions. I rephrase it, make sure I'm concise. Did you go to college? What did you study and why? And advice to a college student.
My name is Jared. I went to college. I went to the University of Washington. I studied electrical engineering. And why? This is a semi-long story. So, I come from a single mother. She raised me. But then your mother doesn't have a lot of time for you. So by 5, 6, 7, by probably 7, I started taking the bus to school. So I had some kind of drive to do things. The second thing that I learned is watching TV. You get a lot of time as an only child, so your mother plops you in front of the TV and does different things. But that showed me a different world, right? And then when I think maybe 10, 11, I'm dating myself, 10, 11, 12, I got Nintendo. Nintendo pretty much opened my eyes on something completely different, right? Like Super Mario, this guy jumping in, hitting a brick, and then you hear this little sound, ding! That really got my mind working, and I started wanting to figure out what this world was about. When I went to high school, I thought it was going to be a football Americano player. And however, I hurt my back, and I also wasn't great. And luckily, I had taken the math test, and I had a really, really high SAT score. That showed me that there was other things I could do, and so I fell in love with computer science. And I went to school for electrical engineering, and then I ended up going to Motorola, and then Microsoft, and Evernote, and a couple other companies. So let's stick to it.
So my story is very similar to Jared's. I remember I went to college. It was Tec de Monterrey. I was in high school, and I remember they just bought 2 new Apple II computers. That's how far I go. And after using them for like 1 or 2 days, I knew right away that I was going to do computer science for life, and that's what I've been doing since. My advice to you is that not always things are going to turn out the way you want it to be. So, but you should do some. You gotta make sure that perseverance is really important, right? Not always things happen the way I want it to happen, but you have to keep trying. You have to keep doing it, and that's my one advice.
Sweet. Yes, actually, not always you get what you want. So I'm also Puma. I went to Facultad de Ciencias. I did computer science, and at the same time I went to Tec de Monterrey to do electronic engineering. I was more interested in electronics at that time. I wanted to do robotics, but then not everything went the way I wanted. I started working mostly in software, so 20 years later I built my career on software development. But now, 20 years later, I kind of came full cycle because now I work on part hardware, part software, so that really helped me. That knowledge I have on electronics and low-level stuff, plus the engineering, the software engineering, the programming and cloud computing and all that, it helps me in my everyday work. So yes, just you have to take what comes at you with life, but just keep going and try to find what you like and just do it.
Yeah, so I think we all are video game inspired folks. So why got into computer engineering? I grew up in India. This was like 7th grade or so. Somebody came from US and they had like this one computer and they showed us Prince of Persia game. I don't know if you guys have a long time ago. It was just amazing, right? I was like one kid in the crowd and I was like, oh, this seems interesting. And that's how the journey started. And then went to college and everything. I did my bachelor's and master's at Senegal University. I came to the United States for some time. One piece of advice I'll give you in my mind is that don't do it for the money, right? Like don't pick a career or pursue a job just for the sake of money. Follow your passion, right? If you're really good at something and you're passionate about it, money will come along with it, right? So you keep that front and center in terms of why you're doing it. If you're doing it for the right reason because it gives you happiness, I think things will work.
For me, I was always very, very, very curious as a child. So on the bus, I would talk to strangers and ask questions. And so I was always very curious as to why people bought things they did. So I actually went to San Francisco for my undergrad and studied psychology and consumer behavior, and then went into research. I ran a consultancy, and then I went back to UC Berkeley to get my MBA. So I have a business degree, but studying survey research and statistics and ethnography and combining all those together. And I appreciate at Netflix being on the leading edge, where we work very closely with data science and others, and the evolution of taking research and the synthesis and triangulating different sources of data to come up with insights has always been fascinating. So I think follow your passions, but also look to see how you can combine things in interesting ways as well. I think can provide unique opportunities.
So I went for computer engineering because, I had a dad who was an accountant, is an accountant, and he worked for IBM for 30 years plus. So basically I was born with a very prehistoric computer. Instead of like Nintendo, I had like a very prehistoric video game in my computer that was like, you had to solve like mathematical problems and you would destroy the monster. So that's how it started. I wanted to become a software developer. My first job was to be a software developer for a business intelligence platform. So that's how I discovered data. Coming from the other way, from Adrian, I discovered that data shows human behaviors. And that's what inspired me to do a master's at Northwestern. So that's my story. My one piece of advice is always be curious, don't let it go, and never be shy of speaking up.
All right, last one. I don't think I have a very interesting thing to add from a story perspective, so I'm going to keep it brief, like just the blah blah blah, the same old story. Masters. What I think is interesting is the reason why I got into computer engineering, right, was actually it doesn't always have to be a epiphany moment of like truth coming to you, going, oh man, this is it, I'm going to do this. Or the reason why I did it was because of air conditioning, right? Because I grew up in Delhi. Hot Delhi. And I could not believe that you can get paid to sit in an air-conditioned environment all day and work in computers. And I was like, how is that even possible? That makes no sense. Like, oh my god, it's just so I was actually attracted just because of air conditioning, because of the human basic nothing too fancy. Going towards where I think you all might make a really big dent on the world I think interdisciplinary is something that I feel is like that's going to be really meaningful and impactful work, right? So as you're going through it, whether it's merging history with computer science, whether it's robotics and poetry, it doesn't matter. But like mixing two things we just don't mix together, mix them up and see what comes out of it. Because that's going to be a really fascinating, cool world that we are heading towards, and you all will be like kind of leading the way there. So really kind of looking to all of you to show us what all can be done there.
So we have 15 more minutes before we break out. So we have some more. Anyone wants any questions?
Okay, so we know that the cannot be developed in every device. For example, because you watch Netflix in the Wii U, you can watch Netflix on the Switch, and you have in the Roku. And my question is, what are some of the barriers that the business is going to have when developing or installing new devices, such as smart computers or smart devices or new software for games?
Well, actually our purpose is to try to be in as many devices as we can. Sometimes, yes, you have some new platforms like Wii or things like that that are not yet supported. Most of the times it's because of the features the hardware itself supports, because we have some specific like quality standards we want to preserve. So if, for example, it's a very small device that doesn't have enough memory or enough CPU power, then it might not be the best experience for the quality we want to do with the streaming and video and audio. Sometimes it's also because even if it's the same brand, they use a slightly different platform, a different chip, different processor, and because again we want to make sure that the experience is the best, we need to certify the hardware. In fact, my team is in charge of providing and working together with the manufacturers like Nintendo, LG, Sony, and they have to go through a process of certification. So we provide them with the tools for developing the Netflix app. We give them the SDKs, we give them the tools, and we also give them a set of tests they need to pass. So we are working together with them, and once they pass all the tests, we make sure we have the best quality, the best video, the best audio, then they are certified and they can ship Netflix on their devices. So that's why you sometimes have differences even in the same brand. But yeah, we are working all the time with even new models that are not yet in the market. We are already working with them. So.
Actually, a follow up. Why do different devices have different UIs?
That's a good question.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that? Tell me more.
Well, if I watch it on a smart TV versus a Roku, will be a different experience.
So one of the things that we have to do is we want to maintain the integrity of your experience. So obviously video watching is the most important thing. So when we think about a device, we kind of certify a device and we certify features also. But the certification of the features comes in the cloud. So device comes up, says, hey, I'm logged on and I'm an awesome thing. So it says, okay, you get awesome feature set. Another device logs in and says, oh, I only have 1 megabyte of memory. Then you get just video playing and very slowly. And so what we really are trying to do is optimize for the user experience. And so we want to give users some experience that the users with the highest end devices, the best experience with the most features, and then the other users, the low end devices, we want to optimize for video playback. And then there's this balance that we have where we experiment with features and making sure that the right features are right for you. And so we released some features, we tested it, and we're like, oh, that was a great idea. It moved streaming or it moved retention or something like that. And then other times we do that and it was a very bad idea. And we don't release that feature. And so sometimes you'll log an account and you'll say, hey, your friend has this feature. Like, I would really like to have this feature. And it's like, I should call customer service. They're like, but other times, if that feature does win, we then start rolling it out incrementally to different markets and to different regions and then globally.
How you guys are welcoming Spark 3.0 and Quad?
Spark 2.0? 3.0.
3.0, right? You're ahead of the times. We are still on 2.1, I think, or something, 2.3. So we are still getting there. But it's a good question in the sense that that's an eternal thing. We always keep evolving the technologies, right? In general, I think the mechanism we use is it's a grounds up thing. So as features keep getting released in these technologies, and they have a demand from many of our data scientists, analytical engineers, data engineers, as they need those features, the platform team then starts supporting it and providing it as a first class baked-in support on many of our images, etc. So there's not a fixed format per se, but generally speaking, I think anytime it becomes part of AWS images, like EMR and other images would have those features. Those are good kind of milestones where you can expect it to be widely available within Netflix as well.
Can I just add a little bit to it? So in general, I would say we go back to the Netflix culture, it's a freedom and responsibility culture, right? So we don't have set process by which this technology is now ready for use by engineering or anything like that, right? So it's individuals, engineers who can take the initiative and say, hey, the problem that I'm trying to solve for, is this technology the right way to solve for that? They have the freedom to bring that technology into the ecosystem and prove it out that it works, and then it slowly gets adopted more widely across everything, right? So it's the same thing. Spark 2.0 to 3.0 might be one of those transitions. When Node.js came around, it was the same thing. Some UI engineer in one of the teams said, hey, this looks better than Angular. Let's try that out. And slowly it expanded into its whole thing where Node and React is probably the primary UI language that is used across that.
I have a question about product quality, and that goes into two areas, the development part and also the team interaction. So in the developing part, I know Netflix has great content that has been breaking a lot of traditional ideas, which I think is great. And what happened in the terms when you use these algorithms to recommend something to someone, did you check up the bias in that? So if there is a traditional guy only watching violence movie with a lot of nudity and blah blah blah, there is a possibility in the algorithm that you suggest that person to watch a different type of content that might break those ideas on that individual. Because I think you have been doing a lot of work on that. That's in the technical side, and in the team part, in the team side. How many girls are working in your team? Have you been able to get more, which is something that all girls in engineering and science want to happen? And if you have anything happening inside of the company to improve those numbers.
Who wants to take those questions?
Yeah, they are really great questions, and I'm sure that there is a lot of that in the content side. And just for example, in my team, half of them, we are 10 engineers, half of them are women. We are from all over the world, Mexican, we have somebody from Bulgaria, somebody from India, somebody from China, so it's a really, really good environment to work in this. And people like Princesa and Michael and Jared, for example, there are groups within the company trying to promote diversity in terms of culture, your origin, your gender. So it's a great place to work in that regard.
Jared?
I just want to add that also at Netflix we have a team that is dedicated for diversity and inclusion, right? And I also want to mention that diversity is just way beyond just gender and race. It's education, it's age, it's just like a way of thinking. So yes, it's something that is the company as overall, we're very focused on it. And it goes not only internally, it's also the way that we are sourcing our candidates. What are the markets that is maybe we haven't paid much attention, right? So we also use data to understand what are those markets, how we can approach them, what are our biggest areas of opportunity. So it's something that is we're never gonna be perfect, and we're always gonna continue working to keep getting better at it.
just on your question about diversity of content, right? So that person who likes seeing violent movies, right? I think that's a very tough question you ask, and it's a very, very interesting question. I think it's something that we as Netflix have to grapple with and are grappling with internally as well, in terms of like, what is that line? Where do we draw that line, right? Are we in the business of showing puppy movies to somebody who likes violence, right? I think if we inverted it, we wouldn't like it. If you like puppy movies and watching cute movies about dogs, you wouldn't want to be shown violent movies, right? So why is it okay the other way around, right? And like, I think we have to grapple with a lot of the ethical, thorny issues that come out of this stuff. And then there's a really great dialogue that goes on within the company. I personally take a lot of heart from it because these are tough questions. These are not really easy to answer because there is an impact that Netflix has at a societal level as well, right? And we have to balance that always. So the best thing we can do is have an open mind and keep an open dialogue internally to challenge ourselves about it. But in general, I would say right now at least, we would lean towards you pick what you want to see, right? And the recommendation engines are really about showing you stuff that really make you happy, right? That resonate with you. If you're into dark comedies, we are not in the business of judging you in any way, right? It's your, like that's not what the recommendation engine is supposed to be. So we want to honor that, and at the same time, walk that tightrope of like, hey, what is the right thing to do, right? And are we in that business of showing stuff which you are not necessarily interested in, right? Today's answer is no. We mostly lean no on that.
I also want to follow up on one thing. So at Netflix, we have something called employee resource groups. So if you look at my computer right here, it's actually decorated with a lot of different groups. So employee resource groups is essentially for all employees. So right here we have example AEN, which is Asian employees at Netflix. We have this right here, which is strong black lead. So we have a group for black or anyone who associates the black community called Black At. We have this, also it's my shirt right here, so it's for the LGBT community. We have a group called Pride as well. We have Somos, which some of us, of course, are a part of as well. So it's a group for all of our employees who are Latinx or identify as Latinx. You're from Latin American, you're Brazilian, you're Mexican, you're Spanish, etc. So there are a lot of groups that we have at Netflix that promotes inclusion and diversity. We also have a group called, it's for anyone who is a woman at Netflix, and if you're an engineer as well. So there are quite a few groups that we have. And they're called employee resource groups and helps foster different diversity and inclusion as well. And so with that being said, we're going to wrap up with questions here, but we're here until 4, and so our team is going to mingle around in here, outside of it. If you have any questions, please come and find us. Thank you. Thank you.